I'm not exactly sure how good you can hear me with the way this truck is loud right now. Anyway, my truck broke down Friday night. I was leaving work. I just got done changing the oil. I made it about 15 miles away from work, and I was doing about 75, 80. I was in a crowd of people that were just wanting to book it and get home after work. So I jumped in with them, and we were rolling. I got about a mile into it, and the truck just fell on its face. I coasted off to the side of the road, and I spent the next hour and a half on the side of the road trying to figure out what was wrong with it, testing for fuel pressure and stuff like that. I told a few people that I'd be online this weekend to try to help out, things like that, make some videos, recipes. So my evening was a disaster Friday night. I had Angie come out with me on the side of the road. She was a trooper. She took me to the parts store, grabbed a fuel pressure tester. My fuel pressure was a little low, but it wasn't like out of spec. I still went ahead and knew that I was going to put a fuel pump in this weekend anyway. And then I started testing for some other things. It had a brand new ignition coil in it. I just put an ignition coil in it. And in these Dodges, 2001 and prior, down to 94, the ignition coils are notorious for going out. And I got the ignition coil brand new just a couple weeks ago. So I thought to myself, what did I do? I mean, what could I have done that would have caused this? All I did was wash the engine and change the power steering pump recently, and then do a really good oil change, full synthetic oil and stuff. They had this Valvoline high mileage, brand new easy pour stuff that was marked down from like $35 to $22 on sale at Walmart. So I did an oil change. I threw a real good filter and stuff in it. The truck's been running good. The only thing is, whenever I start it in the morning, it's got a long start. It'll go and then it'll start. Well, that's a key indication that the check valve inside the fuel pump is going bad. It's not holding line pressure overnight, so while you're cranking, it's having to build up that pressure in the line. So I already knew something was kind of iffy about the fuel pump. And then washing the engine and changing the power steering line, the oil change, I figured, I'm only doing good for this truck. I'm not doing bad. Well, the computer took a dump on it. And on the way home Friday night, when do you ever lose an engine computer? It's very rare. But I guess there was some studying up I should have done more on this truck that I didn't do. The 1996 to 2001 Dodge Rams were notorious for the ECUs burning up on them and basically leaving you stranded on the side of the road. And that was a key symptom. Going down the road, just all of a sudden out of nowhere, fall on its face, cruise over to the side, act like it wants to start sometimes, but then won't start. So me being a mechanic, I automatically thought it's going to be my fuel or it's going to be some kind of ignition concern. So what I did was I started checking wires. Maybe I got water in something I should have got. I started checking connectors. Nothing was wrong with the connectors. There was no water in the distributor. So I thought, you know what? I've had this happen before, similar to this, where the magnetic pickup in the distributor that references cam position ends up messing up on it, and then it will stop sending a pip signal to the injectors, or it will lose its timing. So basically what I did was the next day I changed the magnetic pickup in it. That did not fix the problem. I changed the fuel pump in it because it was going bad anyway. That did not change the problem. I went ahead and replaced the ignition coil under warranty, even though it tested good. It's a cheap ignition coil. That did not fix the problem. What else did I do? The cap, when I flipped the distributor cap over, I noticed that the points that were under for each cylinder were kind of burned. There was a lot of corrosion and stuff on them. I tried cleaning them off and putting it back. It didn't really want to start after that either. I noticed the button, the rotor in the center of the distributor, it had some scarring marks on it and stuff where it had been arcing, where it's getting real weak, not making good contact with the button in the center of the distributor cap. So I went ahead and put a new cap and a new rotor on it, as well as a new magnetic pickup, new ignition coil, and still was not firing. After all that, fuel pump, magnetic pickup, rotor distributor cap, ignition coil, I thought, you know what, maybe my issue is not that. Maybe my issue is my crank position sensor. It can't see what position the engine's in it when it's trying to start. So I got a scanner, I hooked it up, And sure enough, it said something about crank position missing, and then in parentheses it said something about diesel. Well, I know this is not a diesel, and that was the only code to go off of in the computer in general. So I got up underneath the truck, I squeezed my arm up in a really, really, really tight spot, and I'm shoving my arm up in there, and I'm trying to feel around for these bolts that are on like the transmission, and I can feel that somebody has had these bolts out before because one of them is loose and the other one's tight up against the transmission. So I thought, man, somebody probably stripped these threads out of one of the bolts and never put it back in. Well, I pull the bolts out of it and I squeeze that sensor back out of there, out of the top of it, and I bring it down, and I'm looking at it, and it has been bouncing around inside the hole for so long that it's wore the face off of the sensor. And that's not good, because that's what it does is it reads an on-off pattern. It reads a square wave pattern. And how the computer knows that your engine is at top dead center is it'll read a series of square wave patterns, and then it'll be elongated open one, and then it'll go back to square waves again. And when it hits that elongated open one, it'll say, oh, that's top dead center, and it knows this was bad, was going bad. Then they won't drive correctly, and the truck won't start. So I replaced it. Didn't start. Code didn't go away. The computer, for some reason, wasn't responding. When I was looking in the database in the computer, trying to figure out, am I getting spark advance? Am I getting any kind of spark? Am I getting any kind of indication that I'm getting ignition timing? Everything in the entire system is brand new. So I thought, what the heck? Why not just or the ignition coil wire that goes from the ignition coil to the distributor, because you can have power at the ignition coil and it can be sending spark out, but if you've got a weak wire or a wire with too much resistance, you're going to have some big problems. So I went ahead and changed that wire out. It's not the issue. There's nothing else I could do other than go home. In the meantime, Angie's brother, they're going out of town, said, take my Ford Explorer for the weekend. It's a piece of junk. We'll be back Sunday, but I won't need to go to work until Tuesday, so you can have it until Monday. So I've been driving around her brother's Explorer for the entire weekend, the last 2 days, getting parts, going home. Went back out there today, and on my way back out there today, I thought about it as I was pulling out of the driveway. The neighbor's got a 98 Dodge Ram. I have a 2001. He's looking to sell that thing anyway. I wonder if I can make some kind of deal with him where I could, like, pay him a couple $100 every couple weeks or a month or something like that until it's paid off. It's a running truck, but it's got a weak motor, but it has four-wheel drive. It has a transmission, everything else that could be swapped into this truck to make this truck four-wheel drive. It's got a beefier suspension under it. So I thought, why not? You know, why not give it a shot? So I go over and I say, look, I'll make you a deal. I'll buy that truck off you. I know you want to sell it. He said, I don't want nothing for it, really. It'll start up and run right now. It'll run from here to Chicago and back, and that's over an hour. He said, I just know it's not worth anything because it's an old junk truck. And I said, I got you. I feel you. I said, can I take the computer out of your truck? I want to go throw it in my truck and see what happens. He said, why would you do that? I told him, I said, well, you know, these computers, I've been reading up on the history of them and the notorious symptoms of what I'm dealing with right now. And them just taking a crap on them. I mean, literally just being done, just going out with no indication that they're going to go out, just done, going out. And he said, are you sure it's not like the magnetic pickup or the fuel pump or something like that? I said, no, I had weak fuel pressure to begin with, but I've changed all that. I've literally spent every bit of money that I had put away. All the extra money that I was saving, getting ahead, I had to pull right back out to put back into this truck. And he says, well, so you've done the fuel pump, you've done the ignition coil, you've done the magnetic pickup, the rotor, the cap, the crank sensor, you've done the wires. I said, I've done everything. I have replaced every freaking component of that system. The only thing that I have not replaced that doesn't make any sense is the computer. And you've got a 98 model, I've got a 98 model. The only difference is yours is four-wheel drive, so my computer, or your computer, is going to be looking for some kind of information feedback from trans temperature, overdrive, four-wheel drive, things like that, and it's not going to see it. So there are going to be some error codes there, but in the meantime, the engine will be the same. The security module and stuff like that will all communicate and be the same. It'll still start, it'll still run, and I'll have an error message with a check engine light, but at least it'll get the truck going. He says, yeah, go ahead, pull it. See what you can do. I'm trying to get rid of the truck anyway. I said, okay, I'll buy the truck from you, but you got to work it out with me now because I'm just getting back on my feet to pay this thing off. I'd like to make my truck four-wheel drive anyway. He said, yeah, your truck being a sport edition four-wheel drive, and with all the work I've been doing to it, it would be worth quite a bit of money restored. And I said, well, that's where I want to go with it. It's a good truck. And I took the computer, went back to the shop, drove 15 minutes away to work, took his computer, tossed it in the truck. The battery was dead. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, man, what is this one thing after another? Take the battery down to AutoZone, have them charge it and test it. And they said it's just under spec. The tester tested that it was bad, but it's just under being bad. You know, I might get another 6 months out of it, a year, but it's also going to have to be replaced. I said, damn it, man, what? It's just nonstop. So another $100, $130 for a battery for this thing on the cheap end. The better batteries are like $170 to $200. So while they're testing and charging the battery, I run over to the Village Produce behind there to get some onions and some jalapeno peppers, because I want to chop up some pork spare ribs tonight and do like a slow marinated, some Tony Chachere's and a little avocado oil and stuff like that, and some onions, some pepper, and just slow cook them in the oven real slow for a couple hours. And I thought, you know, go ahead and get myself a new chopping knife and stuff while I'm there, because I don't have any of that. And I went ahead and I sprung the extra 17 bucks for just like a cleaver chopping knife. And went back over to AutoZone, picked up my battery, ran back down the road, threw it in the truck, tightened everything down. Sure enough, on the first hit, the truck fired right up. I shot the ECU in the computer. The computer just took a crap on the truck completely. And that truck needed a lot of that stuff to be reliable, to stay on the road long term. But I threw a lot of parts of that truck that it didn't need, trying to figure out what it was, because I couldn't go anything off diagnosis. I couldn't do anything off of, the scanner would talk to the computer, but it wouldn't tell me anything that was wrong with it. So tossing that truck for that 98 Dodge Ram is running this truck right now. I just got done picking it up and putting it in there, but I've got a check engine light on, I've got a trans temp light on, I got an overdrive light on, because this transmission is a different transmission and it's a hydraulic transmission. So yes, it'll function fine, it'll drive fine, but it's not seeing these other things to know what position everything's in, what temperature, should it be kicking overdrive on or off, because it's a different type of sensor. It's running everything else on the vehicle completely fine. So I'm glad that I have something to go off of now. I'm going to drive this home tomorrow morning. I'm going to take it slow, get back to work. I'm going to see if my boss has a vehicle that I could drive for the rest of the week as like a trade-in. So I don't, because it's like $225 to buy another engine computer. I already looked it up online, and it says you can buy a new ECU programmed with your VIN. These aftermarket companies make them now because they know they're notorious for going out. But it's $225 for it. I just don't have the money right now. I just messaged Angie and I said, look, help me out until Friday. Buy this computer for me, and then I'll give you the money back Friday as soon as I get paid, because I've spent everything that I had in savings put away for this. So I'm just waiting on her to reply back. I'm sure she'll do it. Angie's a sweetheart like that. She helps me out, I help her out. I make more money than her, so I do most of the paying for the trips and stuff that we go do. She's no chump. She makes good money too. So, you know, we'll see what happens tonight. I'm sure she'll buy it for me and have it sent to the house. And then it's just been a rocky weekend. I've made some promises to be online, to do some cooking videos and stuff like that, and I haven't been able to do that because, man, I hate when I stress like this, because I notice when I stress like this and my anxiety levels get crazy out of control, my chest starts hurting. I get this like floating pain around in my muscles in my chest, and it floats from the center of my chest to the outside, then back down, then back up, and it's just constant pain that floats around, and it stays there for days. Even after I fix my issues or whatever's wrong with me, it floats around there for a while. And I was looking up online to see if that's accurate symptoms for stress and anxiety, and it said it was some major symptoms, that it's just pressure buildup, anxiety buildup, acidic acid buildup and stuff in your muscles, things like that, where you just stay tense. And man, it was ridiculous. The fuel pump for the truck was $200. The magnetic pickup for the truck was like $54. The crank position sensor was like $45. The ignition coil was like $39.99. cap and rotor was like 30 bucks for it. It's just non-stop. Something always happens. But I don't know if this was a message for me to stop waiting to fix things that I knew were already having problems. Like I already kind of knew the fuel pump was having an issue on startup. There's no reason it should take that long to start, even though it starts every time. The check valve that holds the pressure in the line is bad. You know, some good things came out of this. I was able to get underneath the vehicle, pull the tank, clean the tank completely off, clean all the rust that was just falling off the vehicle and stuff from underneath. I got a better indication on the quality of the brake lines, the fuel lines and stuff, what it looks like underneath. I was able to see that somebody had replaced the brake lines from the front to back before, and they left the old rotten one there. Literally, it rotted out, and they just left it there and ran a new one right next to it. So I was able to see that that's kind of newer. I was able to see the fuel lines are newer underneath, so they probably rotted out before. What else? Underneath this truck it's not that bad at all. The only rust is kind of right around the wheel wells, which I'm in the process of fixing now. I've done some more stuff over the last week to fix the rust in the wheel well areas. So overall, this truck has been a great truck. I can't complain about it. I cannot complain. This truck has been a really rocking truck. But the fact of the matter is, I've had some issues with it. You know, now with everything being brand new, I'm hoping that I don't have these issues anymore. I'm hoping that I don't have to worry about this anymore. I mean, literally everything that runs this truck will be brand new, including the computer. So now that's where I'm at. I would have never expected the computer to take a crap on this truck like it did. But I guess an old computer, notorious for going out, not built very well, going 80 mile an hour is not probably the brightest thing. Expecting this thing to keep up with all that, and it's old. So now everything's new. I'm hoping that I can get back to doing 75, 80 mile an hour just like everybody else. Right now I'm doing like 63, 64 because no overdrive. And I'm sitting at 2,500 RPM, so I've got to be careful, about driving and stuff like that. But, that's the situation, unfortunately. That's why I really haven't been online too much this weekend. And tonight I'm going to try to go home and do another video on those pork spare ribs with that onion and jalapeno and stuff, and how I'm going to marinate them in that olive oil, Tony Chachere's. See how they come out. I think it's going to be really good. Anyhow, that's the update. I got to buy an ECU for the truck. The old ECU, took a dump on it. And then, those of you that are interested, the ECU is the intercontrol unit. On these Dodge Rams, what normally happens is the magnetic pickup in the distributor goes out, or you got a bad button, or it's an ignition coil. And then third or fourth would be the ECU going. That's pretty sad. The fuel pump or the ECU, kind of in that order. So it's not that order. It'll be the fuel pump, the ignition coil, magnetic pickup, or the computer. In that order is typically what ends up happening, or the crank position sensor. And on this model truck, on this particular truck, over the last few days of doing some research on it, those were the things that went bad on this truck. Nothing else really did. I mean, you would have a power steering line that would leak from time to time. So I've noticed that right after I bought this truck, under load, and what I mean under load, for those of you that don't know, under load maximum pressure on your vehicles when you turn the wheel all the way to the left and hold it, or all the way to the right and hold it. You unload your unloader valves, and you allow all your pressure to feed into the line, and that's at its most sensitive point, because you're just pumping all the pressure that you can into those lines. And I would notice that when I would back up to the left or right and I would unload those unloader valves and let all the pressure go into the power steering lines, there would be like 4 streams of fluid that would come out and blow over onto the valve cover. And with the exhaust manifold being right there, I thought, man, you're going to really start a fire doing that. You better change that. So I went on Amazon and I ordered the pressure line for a 94 to 2001 Dodge Ram with power steering. And I got it in the mail probably a week ago, and I put it on. And it's been great. It was like 23 bucks from Gates. Gates is a pretty reputable company for making power steering lines, hoses, engine belts, things like that. So I put that on. The dealer wanted $118. Amazon only wanted 22 bucks or something like that. But those are the notorious problems with this truck, just so you know. If you ever buy one, they're great trucks, but torque converter and ignition systems were not that great on them. Overall, if you kept everything up, you were good. So that's it. That's what's been going on the last few weeks. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.